Hey, everybody, it's Backwards Day on the show. We're going to talk today about developing incompetence in your team. Stick around on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I am joined by my friend and co-host, AJ Matthew. AJ, welcome to the show.
Here I am again, Scott. You cannot get rid of me.
No, I cannot. As much as you would like to get away from this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. No, today we're talking... Today we're talking about creating incompetence on your team. And of course, I don't know that anybody actually wants to build incompetence on their team, but sometimes it's helpful when we're talking about wanting to create a better team or a higher performance team or something like that. It actually is a helpful exercise to think of it through the lens of the opposite. What would I have to do if I wanted to depress the performance of my team? And so we're doing that, kind of keeping things lively and fun a little bit, taking a different angle on this. But I do think it is actually helpful to think through this lens because, AJ, I believe that some people might hear some of these things today and go, I do that. That is something that I sometimes do.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's a little kind of tongue-in-cheek episode today of taking the inverse point of view on what would be healthy and effective in your team environment. So, and we've got 6 kind of categories to get through, Scott. So let's jump
maybe
in.
would it be helpful if we kind of give what is this coming from? Like, are
Sure,
these just
yeah, absolutely.
arbitrary 6 buckets?
That's right. Good point. Let's talk about this. Originated by a gentleman by the name of Gilbert in like the late 70s, right?
Believe. Right.
Yeah. So Gilbert's behavior engineering model that is categorized into the areas of information, instrumentation, and motivation, and then from sort of external drivers and internal drivers, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, more or less you're getting that right. So the idea is that the end result when you're talking about getting more from your team, building a more effective team, is you want to essentially alter their behavior, right? If you've got someone who's, just think of it in its most simplest form, AJ. I've got a greeter who I want them to show up on time, which means 15 minutes early. I want them to be smiling. I want them to, not get stuck in these side conversations with people they know. I want them to be sure that they're noticing new people, handing out bulletins or whatever is included in that job description, right? So I have this idea in my mind of what an ideal greeter would do, and then I have the reality of what maybe, little Johnny is doing. He's a 17-year-old kid who's volunteering as a greeter. How can I get Johnny to quit doing all the things that I've said would be negative? Getting stuck inside conversations, being late, maybe not smiling, and so on. How could I change his behavior? That's ultimately the question, right, AJ?
Yeah. Right.
So then the question becomes, how do I do that? Mm-hmm. How do I change Johnny the greeter's behavior? Mm-hmm. Do I go after his motivations? Do I just need to increase what he knows? Maybe he just hasn't read about what a good greeter does. What do I need to do? And so in Gilbert's behavioral engineering model, he essentially outlines that there's these three general categories that you've outlined here. This sort of informational one, this instrumentational one, and this motivational one. And then you can try to impact those either through the environment, which is more external, or you can go straight to the heart of it with someone internally. And I believe that in churches and in management generally and in leadership as a whole, there's often an inclination to maybe go after those internal things first. Hey, I just need to pep them up. I just need to encourage them. I just need to rally the troops. When in reality, what we discover is, and this is what Gilbert's behavioral engineering model is built on. If you actually go after those environmental factors, those things are external first, you can actually, you're more likely to boost in a person's performance or shift their behavior. So that's a 30,000 foot level of what's behind what we're talking about today. And we'll give some links and some more information in today's show notes for you if you're the kind of leadership and management nerd that I am. At any rate, though, but today we want to share with you, all right, if you really wanted to screw this up, you really wanted to mess it up and do a poor job, how would you do it?
There you go. Okay, so let's start in building our really incompetent team. And the first thing that we want to make sure we don't do is give them good information, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely don't tell them what's expected. For sure, the last thing that you would want to do, is coach them up in any way or tell them if they're doing a good job or not. I mean, definitely don't listen to last week's episode and give them any degree of feedback. That would be...
And by all means, to avoid conflict, definitely don't address any poor performance issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So jokes aside here on this one, AJ, this is a common problem that we see in churches. And we do see churches, they want to avoid conflict. They don't want to say anything to Johnny that he's doing a bad job, greeting, he's getting stuck in these side conversations, or they never give him a job description in the first place, so he doesn't know. Or maybe you've never even thought about what are the expectations for a greeter. These are things that happen all the time. And so, yeah, we are actually building incompetence on the team in the chief way, actually. If this is the number one thing you can do, is to not tell people how well they're doing, to not give them clear expectations, to not coach them up. I mean, that is the number one thing that will build incompetence. And it's the thing that a lot of churches are doing. So,
yeah. Okay. All right. So the second thing we can do to build a really incompetent team is in the area of instrumentation or resource tool development, these kinds of things. So I think we should certainly start off by creating some tools that nobody has asked for, won't really help them do their job any better, and might even take more time than it would be worth. How about that?
Yeah, man. If you want to build an incompetent team, actually just don't give them any tools to begin with.
Oh,
that's
just even better.
Expect that guy who works in the sound booth every week, expect him to remember the Wi-Fi password, or the logins for all of the different tech equipment. Just expect him to remember that off the top of his head, to have it memorized. Definitely don't give him any sort of a cheat sheet or a checklist. Also, your children's ministry volunteers, you should make sure that they don't have any sort of a checklist to reset the room or to clean up. Just expect them to remember to do all that, and you'll be sure to have an incompetent team.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds really good. Maybe
yet another thing, again, tongue in cheek here, but yet another thing that happens a lot. Hey, why is the room always messy? Why are we always forgetting this? We're not creating tools or resources that would help people. We are expecting people to just remember what they need to know.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Man, this is shaping up nicely. I like where we're headed with this. All right.
We're on our way to the most incompetent team ever. Yeah.
Our third area is in the incentives realm. So, which sounds like a bad idea just to begin with. Why incentivize anybody? That sounds like a waste of time for the leader to be thinking about this kind of thing when they could simply be cracking a whip.
That's right. Yeah. If you want to build an incompetent team, you should definitely honor poor performers the same way as good performers. Just your worst volunteers, give them the same amount of attention and credit and honor that you give to the ones who are really just getting the job done.
Good idea. Participation trophies.
That's right. Yeah. And definitely don't use non-monetary incentives. So never write a thank you note, never send that text of appreciation, never find creative ways to show honor and incentivize people to do a good job. That's a key way to build some incompetence on the team.
Okay. All right. Sweet. How about if we just have cost of living increases every 8 years for everybody, and everybody should be happy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. If we're talking about staff, definitely we should for sure not reward staff who do an exceptional job. Definitely don't give them any sort of a Christmas bonus.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Good moves.
Okay, so jokes aside now at this point, we should say this is yet another thing that actually churches do. We will give these blanket statements and go, well, we want to thank all of our volunteers, and you should thank all of your volunteers. I'm not dissing that, but there is a role for like double honor. I mean, even the Bible talks about, the servant who's worthy of double honor, right? Like this is something that you ought to do. You ought to not muzzle the ox while he's trading the grain. Like the Bible creates these images of, hey, for people who are actually working hard, they deserve more honor and attention and reward. And while the ultimate reward is up to the Lord, you can incentivize good performance and good volunteerism by even especially non-monetary things, thank you notes and texts of appreciation and things like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think our salvation is that's the participation trophy for everybody who's placed their faith in Jesus. But
that's right.
The Bible does talk about some additional rewards in heaven that are rather performance driven. So I think it's okay to maybe consider that.
That's I mean, not a non-controversial thing to say. Just throwing that out there.
Hey.
But it's
well,
true.
You know what? Yeah, there's a lot of controversial things maybe in today's episode, and we're sure. So
we're just dropping them. Merry Christmas. We're just dropping these for you.
Go ahead. There you go. Now, so let me clarify. I don't mean salvation exists for everybody outside of placing your faith in Jesus. So I didn't mean to say that way if I did. And
you also were not saying that you're extra saved if you're a good volunteer.
No. Salvation was the baseline. Everybody who's placed their faith in Jesus is saved. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going to add once and for all, because then I would be adding in more controversy.
So all we're trying to say is you can incentivize good performance even in volunteer teams in non-monetary ways, and you should be doing those things. You should. Okay. Let's see if we got ourselves out of that hot water.
Hey man,
number 4.
That's where the fun is, man. The hot tub. So that's the party. Number 4, knowledge. So let's make sure that our teams haven't been trained very well. And we kind of talked about this on information let's make sure we don't do any training and just but they'll figure it out, won't they?
Yeah. And if you are going to do training, definitely have people lead the training who don't know what they're talking about.
That's a good move. That's bonus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, seriously, like someone who's never been a greeter, definitely put them in charge of training the greeters. They'll do a great job.
Hey, you know what? If we are going to do some training, like on that new software, let's bring everybody. Let's do all staff, not just the people that need it and you will use it, but everybody. That's right. We're covered.
I mean, just in case, we should definitely train all of our greeters on how to use the sound equipment. I mean, you never know when you're going to have to just pull someone from the lobby and sit them at that soundboard.
There you go.
So making training irrelevant to the actual job you're performing is a great way to build incompetence.
Yeah, but it's easier. And that's what matters.
Yeah, so you just have to schedule one event. Okay. All right. So now, jokes aside, training or building knowledge is not one of the most effective ways to boost performance. So we're on the bottom half now of our list. So this is not something that does a good job, even in the best of circumstances. But if you do want to build a competent team, the role of onboarding training is really important, getting people up to speed on the things they need to know. So it's really important that you do have people who are skilled, who do know what they're doing, who can boost their knowledge. And you do want to be sure that you're not wasting people's time trying to train them in something that they don't really need to know. Just give them the information they need, because they're going to forget a lot of what you've said anyway. So don't waste your time. That's why the top three matter. Continue to give good information, to continue to give good tools and resources so that you don't have to rely on their memory, which is really what number 4 is all about. But you got to give them a baseline amount of knowledge, particularly in onboarding.
Yeah, for sure. That's having a good onboarding process. I mean, this is where leaders should be spending most of their time, right? When we're developing positions and ways of doing things better. That's a better use of your time, is making sure that you have it done on the front end and not having to catch it on the back end.
For sure.
All right,
number 5.
Our fifth
Let's make a more incompetent team, AJ.
Man, I am enjoying this. So our fifth one is capacity. And I think what we should do is throw any warm body is really fine for any position, and then drive them like a rented mule.
That's right.
I think for sure we're going to see some stellar performance.
Oh, yeah, you're so right. Let's just find any old person who may or may not have the competency to do the job. And actually, let's just not even define what would the competencies for the job be in the first place.
What difference does it make anyway?
That's right. Just, they're alive, so it's fine. And I love that. Just drive them like a rented mule. That's fantastic. Let's burn out those folks so that they're never at their best.
Yeah, well, they're indispensable. We'll just get another one, just like them. So.
Yeah. No, they are dispensable. They're just totally
that's right.
disposable.
Yeah. There you go.
Whatever. You leave, we'll just put you in with someone else that's breathing.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, let's do jokes aside here now, AJ. This is also something that churches do, is it not? Hey, we don't care if you like kids. We need you in the kids ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You are. Do you have a finger that can click next on Pro Presenter? I don't care if you hate technology. Get back there and run the slides for us.
Yeah.
And burnout factor. I mean, we wonder why is our team not at their sharpest? Man, if you overschedule folks and you burn them out, how could they possibly be at their sharpest?
Yeah, for sure.
Or you put them in 5 different roles. That's the other thing. Even if you were scheduled every week, AJ, and you were if you were only in one ministry, that still wouldn't be great.
Yeah. Being unaware. That person only serves in the nursery once a month. But the other 3 weeks they're somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or multiple things a week. Yeah. So not good. And a lot of this I hear a lot in our leadership pipeline work is that the people who are volunteering in 3, 4, 5 places.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of people who are doing nothing because, well, side note, AJ, why do you think they're doing nothing? They look at how you treat the people who are volunteering and they go, I'm not hopping into that. I know that if I raise my hand, you're going to wear me out.
The death sentence. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As an aside, I'm pretty convinced most churches train the pro presenter clicker in the skill of clicking to the next lyric halfway through after it's already begun being sung. Just to add a little pressure to the congregation.
AJ, it's really hard to know what slide you're supposed to be on if you're scrolling Facebook while you're supposed to be controlling them.
All right. Our 6th and final area here on building your incompetent team revolves around motives. So we don't really care what motivates anybody. Their feelings are irrelevant. Only the job matters. And so, whatever, just go do it.
Yeah. Make it really miserable to be a volunteer at your church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never have any snacks available, pick the worst possible times for people to be there, very inconvenient.
Yeah.
And definitely create sort of dead end positions. So you sign up for something and you're never going to get to be anything else. You're stuck there.
Yeah. That way that if we do have anybody that could be a great leader, we definitely never are able to identify them.
Yeah. Why would we want to develop a leader? Why would we want to develop them into a higher capacity person if we could just let them languish at the lowest possible level of leadership for their whole life.
Well, that's job security for those of us who have been doing this for the last 42 years.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not going to give up my seat on the board.
It's a lifetime appointment. We don't want to build anybody else up, and then we wouldn't have anything to do. So
that's right. It doesn't matter what happens after I die, so long as this thing still exists while I'm alive.
Yes. I read that on a non-motivational poster once, I think.
A demotivational poster. Yeah. Okay, so jokes aside here. Yeah, I do think that we very often don't think about, what the work conditions are like, or opportunity. We only think about opportunities for advancement as it relates to careers, but everyone is called into ministry, and I think most folks would like to see themselves grow in their ministry role and take on more responsibility and become a more effective church leader. And if you've got a closed board situation where you do have this lifetime appointment, I can understand from a theological perspective, you can't be an elder and then an unelder. Like once you've become an elder, in some sense, you always are one. At the same time, wouldn't it be better if you have an ever-increasing number of more and better leaders at your church? And you've got to create opportunities for those folks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and as we joked, you just don't know who the Lord has actually gifted and blessed your church with until we begin exploring these people and their personalities and their gifting and their skills. Then if we're not intentionally really investigating and mining these things, then we're truly never utilizing God's sovereignty to its capacity, right? I mean, he blesses the church with what it would need in people and resources. And so if we're not actually actively trying to utilize that to its maximum capacity, then I mean, we're just giving stuff away without really trying to be the church that I think God wants all of our churches to be.
One of the key things in the Timothy passage is how it starts. If anyone aspires to the office of an elder, and it speaks to motivations and motives. And while you can't directly influence what someone's motivations are, people do have motivations, and people do have aspirations, and they do have goals that they set. And so very often in declining churches, what we see, or what I hear from those folks, is that they have a lot of young people who leave. They've left, or we had some young leaders and they left. Well, maybe one of the reasons why they left is they saw that there was going to be no opportunity for them to influence the situation. And so they were a young eagle, and they wanted to spread their wings, and they were going to go somewhere where they were going to be given an opportunity to lead. And so, don't suppress the opportunity. And that doesn't mean that every person who aspires to something gets immediate access to a position, obviously. But you should know what are the goals, what are the aspirations of the people on your team, and be sure that you cultivate in a healthy way those people who do aspire to more and better leadership.
Yeah. Gosh, employing these 6 things would be completely transformational for any team structure. Really would.
Absolutely. So let me rephrase them and just recap them in the positive this time, so that we're building a competent team. So the number one most important thing that you can do is that you can give good information. Tell people how well they're doing. Give them good feedback. If you want to know how do I give feedback, listen to last week's episode. Was that episode 116, AJ? Is that right?
Yes.
You can go back and listen to episode 116. Number 2, make sure you have good, clear expectations for the job and those kinds of things, so that people aren't, vague on what they're supposed to be doing. So number 2 is instrumentation. So tools and resources. Give good tools and resources that help people remember things that they're not likely to remember. So checklists and these kinds of things. They help people know what to do. And to do a good job at this, you should consult the end users, find out what they need, and then develop a tool that's going to help them solve the problems that they actually have. Number 3, incentives. Create good incentives. Make it a fun place to want to work. and to volunteer, where you honor people who are doing a good job more than the people who are not doing as good of a job, so that there is an incentive to want to keep serving and doing more and better, so that you can climb that ladder maybe within the team or get more attaboys and those kinds of things. People really respond well to that. Number 4, knowledge, boosting people's knowledge. This is not where you should be spending the majority of your time. This is not the most effective thing you can do, but having good onboarding systems and giving good information and knowledge on the front end so that people know what to do and can get started on the right foot is an impactful way to get the environment set at the beginning correctly. Number 5, capacity. So again, this is another thing that's internal. It's harder to boost someone's capacity, but you can set it up in the best possible way by defining for folks what are the core competencies for this job, for this role, so that they can assess for themselves if they are or are not ready for the role. But also be sure that you select the right people for the job and make sure that you manage people's schedule so that they can always be at their best, whatever their best is. If you overschedule people or burn them out, they're not going to be at their sharpest. And then finally, motivations. You can't know what someone's motivations are, but people do have them and people have aspirations. And so you can, again, create an environment that allows people to leverage those aspirations and motivations that they have by always having room for advancement, no matter where someone starts in volunteering at your church. And by creating, again, this kind of goes back to number 3, but creating that environment where it's fun to work and people want to keep putting in the hard hours in serving the Lord through the ministry of your church. So do these 6 things and you will develop a competent team. I would ask you, which one of these is something that you're struggling with? You looked at it and you go, man, that is not something that we are doing. We are building incompetence into our team.
Yeah, so you can go over to malforsgroup.com/117. That's today's episode number, and see these points all together. And if you go over to YouTube to our channel there and watch the video version of this, if you're not already, down in the description below, we've got some discussion questions for your team. And while you're there, click subscribe and give us a comment. We would love to hear your response to this and also ideas for any other episodes. We love getting feedback on areas that would help you in your leadership and in your ministry. And YouTube comments is a great place for you to do that. So thanks for joining us today. Oh, by the way, we still have a little bit of time left, Scott, don't we, on our 10% off CMA.
That's right.
Incentives. We're getting close to the end of the year. If you want to go over to malforsgroup.com/CMA and enter the offer code, what is it? 10 off.
10 off, the number 10 off.
OFF. There you go. So we're going to be closing that out, but that would be a great way for you to finish the year with a minimal investment that after Christmas, you can get started on that and we can help set you up for a great 2022. So that's 10 off at malforsgroup.com/CMA. Thanks for being with us. Can't wait to see you next week.